going to say, this is my good friend, Martin Bell. We've known each other for quite a few years now.
Many years.
And, but Martin, let's hear from you. I know that you were involved in counselling.
Very much so. Mainly working with younger people, children and families. And this all came about after many years in the fashion industry at home in the UK. We were fortunate enough to sell the business, but I was very young. I was just 50, if that's young. Yes, very young, 50. And bored and knew no other avenues of business. I didn't want to become a property developer. I just wanted to do something I understood. And the thing I understand most of all, I think, are people. And I think it came about from having to bring up two young nephews whose father had absconded to other parts. My sister not able to do the boyish things, sport, football, etc. It was just a natural progression from that to having a large staff, and the staff became like family, like my own extended family. So my very close friend, Dr. John Brooke from London, sent me to college basically, which I did object to initially because I thought I'm a bit old to be a mature student. And on day one, I got the most peculiar looks from everybody because like, this old boy doing here, these all young graduates, undergraduates, everybody signed up. But within 2 weeks, all my essays were getting top marks, all my role plays were getting rounds of applause because of life's experience. And I began to work very hard to qualify in the first year, but then carried on for a further 2 years. Second year, I worked in a primary school, a very run-down, overcrowded primary school in East London with major language problems because of the volume of non-English speaking children, immigrants. It was a harrowing, harrowing time. 2 terms I lasted, it was amazing. I then went back for the third and final year, mainly because I knew we had a big party at the end of the year at the original college. Got all my paperwork and everything, and didn't know what to do really. Lots of my other friends that were at college were going to set up a large private practice in London. I wasn't ready for that sort of commitment. I went to the NHS, offered my services, I was accepted, and then when they explained their system of the way of working, I couldn't do it because they limit the amount of times you can work with somebody. You can't work with them until you get them safe. You have 2, maybe 3 in extenuating circumstances, and you know that you can do more harm than good in short sessions and things like that. So it brought me to Mallorca really, because I already had a holiday home here in a little putt-putt boat, and I thought I'd like to go there and I'd like to see if I can work there. Obviously only allowed to work with English-speaking people, and realised very quickly that on the island all that glitters is not gold, and there's lots and lots of underlying problems here in the youth and with adults. I started a very successful Facebook group called Open Minds Mallorca, which is just a mental health awareness group where people can post, people can ask questions, they can ask for help, and we have a regular thing about checking in on people, etc. And that's good fun. Series of podcasts, Radio 1 Mallorca for 3 years, and then came the terrible lockdown. And everything sort of shut down except my work. Well, my office had to close, but then it started working successfully online, either Zoom or any of the other messenger services. And it was great. And people felt much more comfortable because they weren't walking into anywhere that might cause a bit of stigma. They weren't being seen going into a clinic or a doctor's office. They were in the comfort and the privacy of their own homes, their lounge or their bedroom, and they could keep it on their end confidential. And it just sort of grew from there. prior to lockdown, of course, was my being struck down with an awful situation, normal operation for diverticulitis, which went a bit pear-shaped. So, to cut a very long story short, I was put into an enforced coma for I think 8 days, not sure, 7, 8 days, and given a week to live. So I thought, well, when I did wake up and saw the mess I was in, I thought, no, I've got to get out of this. And it was a long haul. It was very telling. It definitely put pressure on my then marriage. I was told I would never walk again, and I wasn't going to accept anything. So with the help of physios and nurses in the early stages, I began to get a little bit mobile. And today I can tell you that definitely through faith, definitely through believing in yourself and believing in other things that are around us, you can achieve anything. You can achieve anything. And I play tennis, I play golf, occasionally ride my bike, and obviously walk my dogs every day. So, and I'm very, very grateful for having the gift of life given back to me.
I don't think doctors realise the damage that can be said to somebody. If somebody gives you, I had a car accident when we were in Sri Lanka in a tuk-tuk, and I couldn't take a step with my right leg, and I was told that that's it. You're just going to get used to it, and this is how life is going to be from now on. And but it's funny because I walked out there knowing that I would.
Yeah, you have. That's brilliant.
I mean, there wasn't any doubt in my mind. But when somebody's told you that you've got probably 7 days.
Yeah, well, they didn't tell me because I wasn't conscious, but it was the family that suffered. So they told me afterwards, and the aftershock of post-coma trauma is quite damaging. But you have to deal with it. But if you are determined, you can do anything within reason. I noticed a massive change in things around me when I first came out of hospital. It wasn't so much in the hospital. I started to see things, not dead bodies, but I could see colours and lights and auras around people. And because I quickly looked them up, what does the white mean and everything else, and what to avoid. Very bright ones and very dark ones. And again, looking all these things up, and you're very quick to recognise that you've got a gift if you're feeling and seeing these things. So I started to avoid a lot of people. And it's difficult when you're with clients as well. So on that basis, I decided to mainly try and work with children and families. All children have got nice, bright auras. Troubled ones have maybe like a slightly cloudy, but not irreparable. Having read an awful lot of Kabbalah and always had a spiritual thing going on, and realising that I've got guides that wherever they are, I know that they're with me, whether it's in spirit form or whether it's parental. I get visions, very, very vivid visions, that dream or whatever, of relatives that aren't here. Relatives that I wouldn't think I would get visions of, people that probably passed when I was quite young, like my dad's mum. And I see her quite regularly, and her chuckling and her laughing, and it makes me up, really. It's incredible.
So are these more vivid than dreams?
Yeah, definitely, because what happens was the smells started to happen. For example, just sitting, watching TV, whatever, it's burning. You leap up from the sofa, you rush to the kitchen or whatever. No, there's nothing burning. Out on the terrace, anybody barbecuing, anybody, nothing. And you stand there and you think, it's gone. Sit back where you were, it's there again. And this happens with a very strong, sweet perfume, which I can only assume was possibly might have been my mum's. And I remember I asked my sister the name of it, and she told me, and I've searched to see it, and they don't make it anymore, so I can't even be sure. But whatever it is, I know that there's somebody there telling me something, and I go with it. Whatever thoughts are coming into my head, I believe that I'm being told those thoughts. I'm being guided, being led. I'm led towards people.
What do you think this smell of burning wood is, or burning?
Danger. It can be interpreted as danger. It can be interpreted as to be more aware of your surroundings. It's not one I get frequently. Fruit, you get to smell fruit, and you may not have any left in your bowl. It's great. I find it very comforting. I really do. And at first, all the signs, all the smells, all the visions, they did frighten me at first, because I didn't know how to control it or how to go with it and accept it. And the more you read up, the more you realise that the spirit world, for me, is all around us all the time, all around us.
So when you look back now at some of the events that have happened in your life, that maybe there were spiritual connections,
and you didn't
recognise them.
I think so. I think there was a time when I missed the lift with guys to football, and they were seriously injured in a car crash, and I would have been in there with them. Things like that. I think I abused a lot of the things that were probably helping me without realizing. But it's easy. I don't realize how easy it was to be a good person. And I have to say that I've never been bad, I've never done anything criminal, but probably lived my life pretty close to the wire. But I've never knowingly hurt anybody or done any damage, but I was always very adventurous. I was never really religious or spiritual. I'm not religious now. I love the tradition of my religion, but I can't say that I run my life. My father actually once explained to me that to be a good person of whatever your faith is not what you can demonstrate, not how many times you go to church, synagogue, temple, whatever it is. It's how you are inside, how you treat others, how you respect others. And that's my religion, really. I think that's what I follow. And it's, yeah. And then, of course, listening to some of the amazing things you do, it's just fascinating. Yours I can recognize as an amazing gift. For me, I'm on a learning curve. I'll never have that sort of gift that you've got, but I think I'm good at healing minds. I think I can. It's never ending, though, the amount of pressure life puts on people. It's never ending. It's a drop in the ocean every time you get someone back on good terms. But I'll never give up, although now I've decided a late career in writing, which is not easy for me to sit down and apply myself. Once I'm in flow, from podcasts to special meditations that I made for children, which are all fantasy, all stories. Some are up on the moon, some could be up in a hot air balloon. But everybody related and everybody reacted to those, so I'm turning them into short stories, helping people to use the power of imagination, which is in the prologue, which you'll read, and hopefully get it all published for a charity. So yeah, that I'm enjoying.
They sound terrific.
I do them on myself. It's hard to do it on yourself, but I can't put myself in that position of going on some of these journeys. And they're weird, but they're fun. Everybody comes out enlightened. even adults. I've used it with certain adults that I know are going to be receptive. Um, I'll do one with you one night.
Okay, perfect.
It'll work. I won't do it with Gary, but it will definitely work with you. It would work. It's not many people have that simple thing called belief. If you believe in something, you can achieve it. If you want something, I don't mean material, you can achieve it.
In a way of manifesting, in a
Manifesting is a very powerful thing, and I try and manifest lots of things, lots of things. And there's one manifestation that is actually starting to come off, which I'll tell you about when I go back from America. It's interesting. It's very good.
Can we just go back I want to talk about. So you've mentioned to me in the past that you have some sort of recollections or some sort of memories of things that happened when you were in a coma.
Yes, this is very true. I would see figures of people. You could never see faces. I could see groups of people. I could see enormous screens had my face on them and people pointing. I could see bright lights which were scary, and I could feel not to be drawn to the bright light. I could feel that I was holding back, and on one hand I could feel somebody was pulling me, and on the other hand I could feel someone was pushing me. As you read in books, towards the end of a narrow passage or tunnel, theoretically, in fiction, you're being drawn towards heaven or hell, and I could feel I was being pulled and sort of encouraged, but there was a stronger force pushing me back, pushing me away, and it felt like I was being pushed through the bed. When I was going towards the light, I think I was like levitating. I wasn't, because I was virtually strapped and whatever. I went for post-coma trauma therapy in London to try and answer the questions, which they can't. My life didn't sort of flash past me. And I can't say that, my mum and dad were there saying, come on son, it's going to be all right. It wasn't like that at all. Suddenly there'd be a massive screen. I'd be on it. My kids would be on it. It was like the old sort of 8mm movies. You remember those? That sort of effect. And then it was gone. And then I would hear voices, but it might have been the medical staff when I was starting to come round. I don't know. But most people had their back to me. That I do remember. That was quite vivid. I wanted them to turn around. I wanted somebody to help me. And longer when you recover, you're very scared. I was petrified to go to sleep at night once I was back in the ward, in the room rather, because I didn't want to go into that coma again. And I felt that I would. I felt I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't well enough. So I would try and stay awake as much of the night as possible, and then just fall asleep from exhaustion. But the feeling of being so absolutely helpless when I was helped out of bed for the first time, and legs not working, is a big shock to the system. That is when, I can't say I prayed, because I don't pray, but I do ask for help from where it's coming. I do ask for my guides, angels, whatever you want to call them, to get me through this period, because I couldn't get through it on my own, and I wasn't getting, well, my kids being all back in the UK or in America, the support was on the phone every day, and like most dads, I didn't tell them how rubbish I was feeling. Nikki was working every day and was really not hands-on. Left it to nurses and doctors and everything that were visiting at home. But I knew there was only one way to go. It was either give up completely and go to sleep forever, which I was not prepared to do, and get well. Get well. I think an amazing influence to help me get well was Danny, my son.
Yeah, yeah.
So he stayed on when I was out of danger, and the others went back to England to their families. He stayed on in Mallorca, and he came to the hospital every day, every afternoon, and he stayed till they would kick him out really late at night. And he is very spiritual as well, and all about positive thinking, and he talked to me and talked to me and talked to me, and I used to cry to him, I want to go home, I don't want to be here. And he conjured up a vision for me. He said, I want you to imagine the gates for your house and your 2 dogs sitting by the door waiting for you. He said, if you focus on that, that'll happen. And that's exactly how it was when I went home that day. I refused to get in an ambulance. Danny took me in the car with a wheelchair, and the 2 dogs were by the door. It was quite moving, quite moving. But that's history. That's all about the now. I've been given the gift to live on, for a reason.
But what changed within you with that? You were talking about kind of it was a big change in.
I think you'd probably describe it in Manchester as a younger chap. I may have been a bit of a wide boy, quite flash and big cars and successful business, and in the fashion industry it was like a club. In those days nothing else really mattered, so it was a bit selfish, and very materialistic minded, what you could buy, what you could gain, where you could travel, but all that went out the window completely. Having been fortunate to have travelled to most of the nice places I want to go, and those that I haven't, I will still go. It just made me more aware of how lucky I am, and how, not unlucky, it's not the right word, but how less fortunate 8/10 of the world population is. It's unbearable to see the starvation and the cruelty and everything else that's going on everywhere, and we have to do our bit, which is a drop in the ocean, unfortunately, but if everybody did nothing, it would be even worse.
So if we go back to when you started working, doing your counselling with the kids, has your view of where consciousness sits within the person, has that changed from your?
Yeah, it has, because you have to, if you're working with a child, you almost have to distract them from what you want to talk about for their consciousness to kick in. For example, I would use Rafa, my dog, in therapy. I would take him with, and they would sit with the dog, they would play with the dog, and without looking at me, to get children to be aware of those sort of levels, I think, is very difficult. They have to discover it themselves as they get older. And it's very, very hard, especially with lockdown, it's caused so many problems for so many, to say to someone, you mustn't say to something, there, everything will be all right, because it won't. And important to know, everybody I've worked with, child, adult, I can't cure anybody. I can't. I can help them cure themselves. I can give them the tools, I can give them the support, I can hold their hands, and I can get them through it. But if you don't want to get well, if you don't find the strength, you won't. And that's happened time and time again. But I've got some shining examples of super kids that have come through it, not look back.
So do you think? Because I've always been really relaxed around you, and we can talk about anything.
Anything. But I don't have that with everybody at all.
But I don't know whether that's part of the healing, is that you give someone a space for them to be themselves.
Yeah,
it's almost
very
about
much, because you don't want anything back from it. But yes, you are giving, and you are creating a safe space that they get comfortable with the fact that whatever they tell you, even they say, "Oh, bugger off," they're at liberty to say it because they're free. There's nobody going to point a finger at them or say you can't talk like that. It's amazing what has come out. But I think the saddest thing that comes out when you're working with kids is it's so quick you realise that there isn't anything much wrong with a child that proper parenting couldn't repair. So then you have to go around that sort of tricky, let's have a meet with the parents thing, which is why I always the cafe and dip in the fresh air and keep it quite light and explain, listen guys, we need to work on a couple of things to make it better for him or her. 9 times out of 10 it's well accepted. I have been told, mind your own business, but you do what you can.
I was listening to a podcast the other day with Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
He's like a writer that I think is great. He talks about consciousness and healing, and but he mentioned that children are born with 2 emotions.
Okay.
One of them is grief, and the other one is fear.
I can understand the fear.
And if a baby can't communicate, it can't say, I want that food, it can do one thing and cry. And it's down to the caregiver to decide whether that's food,
Yeah.
it needs a blanket,
Yeah.
it's too hot,
Yeah.
it's pooped its pants,
Yeah.
it needs feeding, it needs some drink. I mean, those are going to be the basic things that it would
But a
need.
parent would naturally read that. A good parent would be able to naturally read it.
But what if the crying didn't respond to something? So Gabor Mate was talking about, if a baby cries and nobody goes to it, they don't pick it up. Surely that's the point where they possibly could have this trigger of the grief
Because they weren't picked up.
because they weren't responded to.
I tend to agree with that, because
It was just quite
I
interesting.
used to hate it. I would hear friends when their child was crying in the pram or the car, just leave him, he'll go off to sleep. They won't. They're not crying for no reason. No, because if I pick him up, he'll stop crying. I said, well, obviously. It's a very, very, very interesting that you link that with grief, and the more I think about it, it's the more probable it is, and would make the child, would breed insecurity at a later date if the child is reaching out for something, because as a baby it reached out and got no response. Wow.
It was interesting.
Can we slip back to something that I omitted? Having been through what I went through, and having had a really good look at myself, I realised that in every relationship, and I've had a few, nobody got 100% of me. I always held back a giving percent. Yes, I might have been generous, I might have bought things, but I may have been buying space or time. But I have to say, I never committed to that 100%. Never. I could do it now, because now I feel I've got so much to give, so much to teach. Whether it happens, I don't know. But being ill does make you see where you went wrong. I'm not wrong. I didn't go wrong. It was my life, and I chose that path. Nobody forced me to do what I did. But now Yeah, for the right person, the right. I'm not talking materialistically either. Just the proper support, the proper care, the proper. I'll do that. Take worries. I always held back, and I don't know why I held back. I haven't worked that out yet, but I know that I'm not desperate, but I know that in the right situation, for the whatever years I have left, I'd like to embrace them with loving warmth and kindness, really, support. Not many of my relationships, partners, I would say, were that supportive of me, thinking about that. So maybe that was why, I don't know. But it's a completely different feeling, meeting people now, judging people now, whereas before I was always prejudgmental, totally. Now I don't need that because I can be next to them and tell within minutes, oh, you're not safe, I've got to move away. And even if I get it wrong occasionally, I'd rather do that than follow those instincts. And I know that I'm not physically being pulled away, but I know that I am definitely spiritually being moved away from things. I'm very comfortable with it all. I'm enjoying it. So,
See, for me, I think it's about frequency. I think everybody emits a frequency.
okay.
If I'm in silence,
Yeah,
I hear my own note.
I understand that.
There's like a
Okay.
that I can
You hear it.
I can hear quite loud if I want to.
Yeah.
But
And what do you get from that?
well, I actually think it's just the frequency that I emit,
Okay.
and I think that's what
Other people will pick it
other
up from
people
you, yeah.
pick it up. So I think this, to me, I always found it fascinating that there's people that you meet and you can immediately not gel with, or there's immediately something that you just you can't put your finger on it, but you'd probably just say hello in the street, and that's as far as it's going to go. But there's other people that you, in my mind, you play a nice chord together with the frequencies of you and the frequency of them.
Okay.
So it's almost like on a piano.
When the people say they're on the same wavelength, basically.
On the same, but it's not just so. Same wavelength is more or less about people who are
things in common.
Have things in common.
Yeah, both like Chinese food.
But this is a frequency that I think it plays a chord together, and you could play kind of two notes right next to each other on a piano.
Yeah,
and it would sound wrong, and you'd put a note in between and have a space, and there'd be the perfect combination of those two notes. So I think it's almost like playing a chord, and you can play a nice note together, or you can be a bad note sitting next door to you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you dislike them, it's just that your frequencies can't tune in together.
Which therefore, it's not quite what I think, but you don't actually have to speak to them to know them.
No.
I mean, I have that, but it's new, it's nurturing, and I could make mistakes. I'm very cautious with it. So I guide with the auras and the I don't care about somebody's history. What's done is done. It's what their tomorrow is all about. Because if I'm involved in their tomorrow, it has to be right. So yeah, I don't have to speak to someone to know. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but I could see someone and think, oh, I don't like the look of you, before I've even sort of got close enough to actually sense something. That needs curbing, probably.
Now, I've only ever seen two auras.
Really?
One of them is the guy who's taught me this whole healing paradigm, David Fleming, and one other person. And I think now you have this gift of seeing the colours that I've seen with David was like a turquoise.
Nice.
And I was like, so then I went Googling
Yeah.
and it actually came up saying this person is a teacher. And it was like,
Wow.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I do Google every single colour and things. Same as with the smell, with the burning. You Google that, it's danger. It's danger. But,
So where do you think consciousness lives?
somewhere in the undeveloped side of our brain that we have to develop and bring it through.
So I've got a theory, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just find it fascinating that, well, there's a Chinese word which I think is amazing. It's Wu Wei. And this Wu Wei is doing by just being.
Okay.
So if you imagine the first cell of a human, it's then split into two cells.
Mm.
Something along the way has got to make the decision of whether to build a cell that's going to be, I don't know, a bone cell, or this is going to be a cell of the skin, or this is going to be a cell of the heart, or we've got 200 different cells that make up human beings. And so I actually thought perhaps that each cell has a field around it that allows it to give instructions to that individual cell. But then collectively, once that cell is split and it's become two cells, and then those two cells split and they become cells, this field of connection connects them all together, and they become a community of thinking cells. Now, each cell would have a minute amount of consciousness, but when we have 40 trillion cells that make up a human body, then potentially the power of each of those individual cells could potentially be our conscious thoughts. And in yoga we talk about kind of different emotions are stored in different parts of our body. Well, it would make sense that they would, because your consciousness is throughout the whole of you.
It's
and
it almost makes total sense.
And they've looked at brains and tried to separate and try and finding parts of the consciousness which they haven't been able to do. They found the amygdala, which is where a lot of our past traumas and past memories are held.
Oh, that's interesting.
But maybe that communicates with the whole. But their fundamental sense of self, I think, perhaps comes from that moment of conception, as if like a blueprint snapshot.
And with that, the soul is
taken
within them.
Well, this is a tricky, because I'm still trying to work about. I still think there's a possibility of some sort of reincarnation of some sort.
Well, I mean, I have been reading quite a bit about that and speaking to a couple of people, because I never really given it much of a thought, but there is certainly some very well written things that suggest that there is reincarnation, and that I've even read that you and I, we could be dead now. We could be on a different level. It's already passed. This took place some time ago, and it's God knows when. Reincarnation, I think it's a nice thing for some people perhaps to believe in. But then couples, when they pass, they will want to be reincarnated back together again, and that doesn't happen. I don't believe that.
But
happens.
look at your tunnel that you saw with the pulling and the pushing. And so I think that when we do die, we become part of this whole energy. Whether this is dark energy, that they're still trying to work out what it is. But I think, and I think there's ways that people who have passed through frequency can kind of communicate with us here.
Oh, definitely they can. Even if it's just signs.
So
For sure.
I think there's certain things that it is quite easy for them. I think radio, anything to do with frequency is really easy.
Yeah, it could come through your TV, your radio, it could be anything. Could be something
That sends a signal.
Something, how coincidental that that's just been said. And you could have had that thought knowing that sort of thing your mother, father might have said, or yeah, I understand that about the frequency thing, but I really believe that that their spirits. I believe to keep a loved one's spirits alive, you have to talk to them all the time. I talk to my dad more than mum. Sorry, he was a better listener, and I asked both of them questions and things, and years ago I remember asking my dad, shall I do this? What do you think? And I felt an answer come back, and I followed what I felt. It was terrible advice. It was wrong, but that's how it is. It's not. But yeah, I mean,
I've had a few encounters, so
I'm very happy to think that they're looking after me. I know for sure. Two of my children are very psychic, Emma and Danny. They both had incredible experiences that you can't really explain when my parents passed. So for me, there's no denying. The experience that happened with Danny, he was only about 7 or 8. And so he didn't know my father, though my father just stayed alive long enough to hold him and see him born. And literally, we got time for this little story.
mm-hmm.
Sitting at a football match with Danny, I used to drag him even as a child and fill him up with sweets, crisps and everything, and they stay quiet during the game. And it was a game of Spurs versus West Ham, which was my dad's team because he was born by their ground. And Danny went very, very quiet and sat back in his chair. I took no notice of him, and at half time I said, you went a bit quiet. He said, I was talking to my grandpa. So, lovely, good. I didn't want to make a big thing about it. We're at a football match and everything. I said, well, what did you say? He said, well, I asked him, could he make Spurs win today? And he said, he can't do that. He said, but he'd always make sure he'd look after me. I went cold at that, completely choked up. I said, right, football, come on, let's get back. Second half. In the car on the way home, quite voluntary, he started to open up. I couldn't hear your dad very well. And my father spoke with him very, very quietly and almost mumbled. And that was due to the fact that he was left-handed. But as a child in the East End, if you were left-handed, they tied your left leg and left hand to the desk so you'd learn to do things right-handed, and it affects your speech. I said, yeah, he was a bit quiet and everything, and then he began to describe him, but he didn't describe my dad as my dad was in later life. He described him as a young man with a moustache. Daddy had a moustache, we didn't have it for years. The hair, the slicked back, brushed straight hair, the kind of stature, shiny shoes. I mean, just described him to a T. So I just let Danny speak and speak and speak. I said, well, that's great because he's looking after you. I didn't sleep that night because this was very early days for me in all this sort of thing. And I think when you first lose a parent or a loved one, you're a little bit scared about their presence. You want it, but you don't think you want it. So it's probably why I never got any sort of feedback as much as the children did. But sorry, I digress there. We were back being conscious, weren't we?
Well, I had we had a business partner, Harvey. Did you ever meet Harvey?
No, I spoke to him just before he died.
Okay. Well,
with you around.
Harvey was wonderful, and we had a business together, and something was going on in the business, and I really didn't want to talk to Gary about this, and I was trying to work it out all in my head. And I went to bed one night and had this incredibly vivid dream of walking into the office, sitting down in front of Harvey and having this conversation about this issue. And what was weird during it, I woke up and I needed to go for a pee, and I went for a pee, and I came back, got back into bed, and the dream just continued.
That's brilliant.
And it was just as if I'd walked out of the office and went to the bathroom there and back in. And he said, "You do this, and this will be fine." So I did,
and it was fine.
And it was fine. But it was more vivid than a dream. Way more vivid than a dream.
Then you, whatever sort of astral planing or whatever it was, but you moved to another level of your consciousness and were able to communicate. That's all.
So another friend of ours, Maureen, when she passed away, we were in Brazil, and I woke Gary up.
Yeah, you said
6 o'clock in the morning.
I remember.
We need to get hold of Maureen. We need to get hold of Maureen. And we were ringing and ringing, couldn't get hold of her. And we then found out 6 o'clock time, Brazil, was the time that she passed away.
Whoa.
But she was walking in a field holding hands with a man. And she was just saying, I've made it. Oh, how amazing. And it gave me such peace. It was quite astonishing. And I knew that she was with her dad. And I never met her dad. But I can see him now. He'd got these like round glasses on. And
I mean,
it was just insane.
It's a gift that you've got when you get things like that, Jonathan. Whether it's a God-given or it's your spiritual side, but it's a gift. Because that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But the Harvey thing, you actually did have this meeting with him, but not an earthly meeting.
Yes.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was for real. It was definitely for real. Yeah. Wow.
So
so much to learn, and not enough years probably left to learn it all. That's the sad thing for me.
So I think when we do pass, our bodies turn back into the elements of us.
Yeah.
And the energy of us, the soul, the spirit.
That lives forever.
Energy cannot die.
No.
So that becomes part of the air that we breathe.
I've enjoyed this.
Well, thank you.
To the next one.
Love you.
Love you too, boy. That was amazing. So much can come out.